let's be honest here. Combat in D&D is kind of overrated. So let's stop building battles and start building conflicts. In this video, I'm going to be giving you 3 tools that help you create encounters, not combat, and give you some examples of real games that I've actually played where I've utilized these tools. So stick around. And if you're new here, my name is still Cage. I'm a professional director as my day job. I have many years in acting, and I've been playing this game that we all love so much for over 7 years. Let me give you some tips I've learned along the way, and especially one that I learned recently that I've known for a long time, but it never quite clicked, and maybe you're the same way. If you're anything like me, you look at the 3 pillars of play, exploration, social interaction, and combat as all part of a balanced diet that you get in any given episode of D&D. And start thinking that, hey, the players haven't killed a goblin in the past 90 minutes. And then, oh no, someone hasn't rolled initiative in the past hour. Oh my goodness, if I don't put some kind of combat in here, all my friends are they're gonna leave. They're gonna file for a friend group divorce and go find a better DM on Reddit. And if that's you, give up. You'll never balance the action economy anyways. What you really need is not to build combat, but to build conflict. Let's break down what an encounter actually is. It's not a grid map or dry erase markers or even an arbitrary amount of infinite hit points that the DM keeps increasing every time you do too much damage. An encounter is simply a storytelling conflict. You can find this literally anywhere in human history, between a blockbuster film that you're watching or a TTRPG that you run on a Tuesday night. There's 3 main things that make a conflict in any story. It's someone wants something, something's in their way. How are they gonna get it? That's it, just 3. Look at any interesting character ever. They all have these 3 same points. Think about any hero from any genre of anything really that you've seen. Movie, video game, comic books, they all go through the same thing. There's something that they want, whether it's peace or just happiness in life. Someone tries to stop them. The villain wants to rule over something, wants to do something that will upset this way of life. The hero has to stop them to get the peace that they want. I often, when I'm playing Dungeons & Dragons, feel like I have to include combat at least every other episode. Especially for some of my tables, they really like getting into the mechanics of things, and I worry that if I don't give them combat, they're gonna leave.
Now, did they ever explicitly tell me this?
No.
Perhaps my own anxieties and imposter syndrome? Probably.
Sometimes as DMs, we fall into the 90-10 rule, which is where we say, hey, I'm a flexible DM. This encounter could go this way or that way. It doesn't really matter. When in reality, we've kind of already leaned it more towards combat versus conversation, because we've ended up spending all this time building stat blocks and battle maps that we kind of want to use it. And there's a fair point to that. If you built a combat that took you hours, you should still be able to run that combat. But to this point, we've already kind of weighed it in one direction or the next. That's not to say you can't weigh an encounter one way or the other. If the heroes are walking into the villain's lair and kicking over all of his nice ornaments that he has laid around, there's only so much you can do. True encounter design would be building a high-stakes situation that could end in a brawl, a tense conversation, or needing to stealth your way out of somewhere. And importantly, all of these are viable options for your players. We don't want to take away player urgency, not all the time at least. So let me tell you about a story of my most recent campaign and the massive problem I ran into. Well, hey, didn't see you there. Hey, you look like a chipper fellow. Hey, did you know 98% of people that saw my last video are not subscribed? So get to subscribe it, or else. This campaign was going to be a psychological horror and mystery themed campaign. Although my players didn't know it was psychological horror. They just knew it was mystery. The problem that I was running into is this was going to be mostly about solving a mystery, questioning, and looking for clues. Very, very little amount of combat. So how the heck do I run D&D without combat? I knew in the first episode there would be combat, and I knew in the last episode there'd be combat against the main boss. But I had to figure out what I'm gonna do in that 3 to 6 episode gap. Turns out, I actually knew what to do the entire time. In the first episode, they had a pretty standard combat against monsters from a nearby forest. But after that, I need to create encounters, or conflict. For the sake of this video, these are the same thing. Conflict is what creates tension. The encounter is the actual situation. In the second episode of this campaign, as they were heading back to the inn, they noticed somebody shady following them in the distance. They ended up reversing the entire thing and tailing him until the whole thing broke out into a chase sequence. They ended up chasing him through the entire town until ultimately it ended in a climax with one of the players finally chasing him down to the roof and catching up to him to pull off his hood and revealed that it was a goblin that had been following him. The goblin had one last trick up his sleeve, which was to throw a giant smoke bomb on the ground, and it ended up rupturing the roof they were standing on, caving in, and they happened to find one of the people they've been looking for, dead on the floor. And that scene was incredibly engaging for all of us, player and DM alike. It's crazy. We never rolled initiative. There was no actual combat. No one even swung a sword. They got to use their spells and abilities and different features, but no battle map, nothing. The reason this works so well was because I created conflict. They're trying to solve a mystery and earn their reward. Right now, they don't actually know what that is, but this guy seems like he could be the problem. So what do? They try to catch him. So here's tool number 1. Use timers. If you've never used timers before, they're super simple and they're extremely fun. It's the mechanic that we use for this chase sequence. Use a D6 or 2 and make one of them tick down when either a player succeeds or fails. Or maybe the person who's running away can tick it down, and if it ticks down to 0, they lose. Shout out to the Daggerheart core rulebook for this mechanic. So that's an example of an encounter and how you can use a conflict to build a scene that isn't combat, but just as interesting. Another tool you can use is use environment stat blocks. Daggerheart actually has an entire section on stat blocks for an environment, which is kind of just basic DCs or dynamic environments that you can have at your disposal. Something like crossing a river could be an encounter in itself. Perhaps the players are running through a forest and you decide to throw a river in their path to kind of just spruce up the sprinting to chase the lost child. This allows the players to use some of their abilities and skills to try to cross this river, or they can always brute force it by just trying to walk and wade through it. However, perhaps in the middle of it, the water starts rushing faster, and then they have to start making checks to see if they can hold their balance and not get swept away by the current, or potentially even get pulled, losing them time. This could also go along with your timers that you just learned about. Other environments that you could build stat blocks for would be a tavern, a busy marketplace, or even a fancy ball. Just set up some things that could happen in that area and then place your characters in a spot where they already have to do or find somebody or something, have the discussion, and then from there, let the scene play out. One of the easiest conflicts you can use is your players want something. Literally find whatever it is they want and put something in the way of them getting it. Whether that be a person, an obstacle, or an enemy. Contrary to what I said at the beginning of the video, combat is still a big part of the game, and you should still use it. I'm not saying to throw away all combat from your game entirely. I'm just saying you don't always have to make it a priority, especially if you go an episode or 2 without combat. They'll make the next combat you do even that much more satisfying. As they say, distance makes the heart grow fonder. Consider this as well. If you know that combat is coming up soon, put an encounter before it and make them burn a little bit of resources. Not a lot, but just enough that they're not fully equipped for this fight that's about to come. Donnie from Mystic Arts actually talks about this in his 5-room dungeon video. Typically, in part of the dungeon, you're actually gonna end up spending some resources to get to the end where you actually have that combat encounter. Encounters are sometimes chase scenes, sometimes even small combat encounters. They even can be intense social interactions, whether a negotiation or otherwise. But let me tell you about my most crowning achievement, the most proud I've ever felt as a dungeon master. The players in this scene had recently saved an NPC from a demonic artifact that was possessing him. Right when they thought everything was safe and they were good to go, the demonic arm had attached to one of the players. It was a part of his backstory. He didn't know at this moment was going to happen, but he did know that he was supposed to collect it at some point. Once it had attached to his arm, It ended up possessing his entire mind, and he went into a situation where he was brought to a hellish landscape and had to start fighting for his life. He attacked the first creature that was in front of him. In reality, he had attacked his allies. Now, although we technically did roll initiative for this moment, no one was just swinging for the gates. After all, this was their fellow party member and longtime ally. There was one thing that was clear, though. They needed to get this thing off of him as quick as possible without killing him. So in this moment, the players had to band together, all using their wits and every skill in their arsenal to try to figure out how to stop this thing. Everyone used as many spells as they could and grappled the gauntlet off of him and started banding together to just try to pull and eventually end up blasting him back in the opposite direction. Ultimately, it kind of felt like Infinity War as all the Avengers were working together to try to pull the gauntlet off of Thanos. This was pretty much that scene. Now, you might be thinking, job well done, guys, great encounter. Except it wasn't, because everyone saw what just happened. The demonic arm, after being pulled off of one person, immediately attached itself to someone else, and everyone recognized this. This was a problem. The second it was blasted away, everyone had already pre-planned to everyone step back. Hold the original player down so it doesn't reattach. This is the moment that I was talking about, right here. But in that moment, everyone at the table stopped. They had to start seriously discussing what they do now. This wasn't just role play. Or was it? It seemed like it was a meta conversation and a conversation in character. They were in real time discussing what do they do from here. It's already attached to one person, and it gave the player an immense amount of power and hit them for a lot of damage. So where do they go from here? What do they do? Can they travel with it? It seemed to attach to him differently than it attached to the NPC. This item seemed like it was of great power. And on one hand, you might see this as good storytelling, and although that might partly be true, the reality of the fact was, I created an intense conflict, an intense encounter that they were so immersed, even the players who don't typically talk was discussing what to do. This didn't come from combat. It didn't come from a grand monologue I gave. It came from giving them a difficult situation where someone's life was on the line and someone they deeply cared about. So let's go back to those three things. There's something somebody wants. There's something stopping them. How are they going to get it? And then going beyond that, now there's still something that they want. The demonic arm could possess them. It's getting in their way. And then they were all discussing, how are we gonna get it? Get it back to camp and, figure out how to sell it for a bunch of money or use it for immense power, but how are they gonna get it? Is the gist of it. The reason that this was my favorite moment as a DM was because I immersed my players so well, even though they're not the biggest role play people, that they were in the action every single second. Because I created a good encounter that was not even combat. And yes, I hear you. Stop glazing yourself still, Cage. But I gotta say, this isn't a glaze. I just feel like this was truly me at my peak. That's right. I have peaked. I will never get better than this. You can stop watching now. Please don't do that. As a third tool you can use, pitch a high-stake social encounter with royalty, someone who seems to be very volatile in their decision-making, someone that the party has to potentially encounter to get something that they're looking for. Make that person hard to talk to. Perhaps not in an annoying way like you won't let them progress and you're harassing them for all the times they've deviated from your story, but maybe they're just not a people person, or heck, maybe they just want to fight. I would highly encourage, if you do something like this though, to still allow the players to win, even if there is combat, but maybe show them there's a better reward if they can pull it off without combat. But don't take away from them because they weren't able to achieve it because of a bad roll, or maybe they're just not great at talking. Hey, listen, I get it. Sometimes that barbarian just got a swinging sword. Who am I to stop him, Yeah, sometimes you like to do the swing. And hey, if you're stuck and you don't know how to make good encounters, and you only know how to make crappy, same old combat encounters, say it with me. I'm a bad DM, my players hate me, and things will never get better. Obviously, I'm joking. You're a great DM. I'm sure you are. Except for that one time. And hey, always keep in mind, sometimes skipping the mathematical stats and character sheets and battle maps sometimes makes prep faster and easier. Not all the time do you have to build an encounter, especially if you didn't even have time to prep it in the first place. You've got a lot on your plate. Chill out. I know I do, you know you do. But hey, listen, if you do have 24 hours in a day to prep all this stuff, please tell me how you make so much money that you don't have to do anything for a living. I would love to hear. Help a DM out, okay, please? But I hope you learned something from this. I certainly have for my last campaign, and I'm still running it. We still haven't really had any combat encounters. We've had a lot of conflicts and really big moments that felt really, really satisfying to resolve and see through. And hey, I'd love to hear from you guys. Tell me about some of your best or worst non-combat encounters that you either ran or played. And leave a like on this video if you enjoyed. And remember, don't always build battles, build conflicts. I'll see you guys in the next one.